Hi, friends.
Hi, Finland.
I'm Mary Frangie, Program Specialist at the Trauma Research Foundation, and I welcome you to Inspired Parenting. Parenting from an attachment trauma perspective with Daphna Lender. This is a free 8-part monthly series. Whether you're a parent or interact with children in other capacities, I'm sure you'll find this information encouraging and useful, and find Daphna's hands-on tools a resource you can apply right away. And it's not just about children. This work applies to people from 18 months to 100 years old. Today's topic is how to regulate a child who is acting silly or chaotic. The session is an hour, and about halfway through, there'll be an opportunity to come on screen with Daphna to ask a question about today's topic. If you'd like to volunteer to be visible on screen, speaking to Daphna directly, just raise your hand and keep it raised. Please keep your questions concise and relevant to today's topic. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider subscribing. It tells YouTube that this content is valuable and they'll show it to more people. It's my pleasure to introduce Daphna Lender. Daphna is a child and family therapist with over 25 years of experience. She's a certified trainer, supervisor, and consultant in theraplay and dyadic developmental psychotherapy, and co-author of the book Theraplay, The Practitioner's Guide. Daphna has successfully treated children and their parents from various backgrounds, including children raised in orphanages, those with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, those exposed to domestic violence and community violence, and children of parents with chronic mental illness and attachment wounds. Daphna provides training and consultations for psychologists and psychotherapists around the world. Daphna is a good friend to TRF, and we're so pleased to have her here for this program. Thanks, Daphna.
Thanks, Mary. What a nice thing to say. I'm happy to be a friend of TRF. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to just change something on my screen. Oh, there we go. My name is Daphna Lender, and I'm going to be talking to you today about children who act silly or chaotic. Well, what does that mean? Okay. Well, I'm imagining a kid in a classroom who's running around and maybe laughing and touching stuff that he's not supposed to, or doing the same thing in the living room or in the party room when there's lots of people around, and maybe he is at a birthday party and he's trying to be the clown, or maybe she is trying to avoid doing homework, and so she's being silly by giggling or falling off her chair, or trying to be poke at her brother or something like that, like trying to be provocative. So a lot of times parents ascribe a meaning to a child who's being silly or acting disorganized or chaotic, or they're being disruptive, as that the child is doing it because they're trying to see what they can get away with, or they're being manipulative, or they want attention, or they're not being well disciplined and they need harsher or stricter discipline or more discipline. I shy away from those interpretations. I don't like to argue with people about whether kids are doing it on purpose to see how much they can get away with or get attention. I don't find that to be particularly helpful, to argue with people who think that that's how the child is trying to get away with something, or trying to just to get attention. I do believe that children have a reason that is more primary and is a more authentic need that they might have underneath. And it's our job to figure out what that is and read the child's intention underneath, and not ascribe that they're doing it because they're trying to avoid something, or they're trying to get attention, or because it's just funner to be silly. And it's our job to think as adults, as the caregivers. So that brings us to the responsibility of the adult of stopping and before you react, to figure out what might my child or the child that I'm taking care of be thinking or feeling or needing underneath on a physiologic level. And I think that being that this is a program that's parenting from an attachment and trauma perspective, so attachment to me first is a physiologic co-regulation and attunement. So we have to figure out what is the child feeling on a nervous system level. So let's take a look at it. Imagine a child who is, let's say you're at church or synagogue and you're in the social hall and there are many people and there's lots of noise and there's lots of people moving around and a lot of stimulation. And maybe the child is like running around the gym and being the little like leader of the other kids, and they're getting in trouble by playing with things that they're not supposed to, or running up to the dessert table and taking dessert that they're not supposed to touch, things like that. Okay, so the idea or the first impulse is to tell the child, come back here, don't do that, stop touching that, don't run, and just give them instructions. But the thing that we have to think about is, what is the child feeling on a physiologic level? And a lot of times kids act silly or chaotic when they're overstimulated. And by that, I mean they could be tired, or they could feel that the entire area is got too much movement in it, like too many people. The sound might be bouncing off of the acoustics are bad, and the sound is loud, and there's a lot of things coming at them at once. Or the situation is really very undefined, and they don't know where to go or who to be with. There's a lot of choices, or there's a lot of like free space or free time. And so in that situation, that overstimulation causes the child to escalate as a way of trying to manage. So if you can cause or be silly or cause people to give you attention, then you're sort of organizing your environment. Okay, so what I would then think about is walking over and trying to help the child by moving them to a quieter space or giving them something to drink and having them sit down with you. But it isn't a punishment. It's having a sit down and a drink with you, next to you, and maybe rubbing their back, or otherwise removing them and reading them a story somewhere in a different room where it's quieter. Well, what does that mean? It means that the adult has to interrupt her conversation. It means that she has to walk over to the other side of the room when she's tired. It means that she might have to leave the social event and sit in another room. And that, for the adult, is frustrating. And I think that's where we run into the conflict with our child, because it's really clashing with what our needs are. So the meeting point of trying to help your child when they're running around and acting silly and chaotic in a social situation, for example, is to first stop and think to yourself, oh my gosh, I recognize that I'm so frustrated that I have to leave the conversation with the adults, or maybe my spouse or the child's other parent isn't doing what they're supposed to do to help me, and things like that, that might cause us not to approach the child in a gentle way, or in a way that can help them, like guiding them to another room or giving them something to drink. We come in with frustration, and that escalates it. When a child sees us coming and we look frustrated, the child then becomes more escalated, and then we get into a control battle. So as soon as you can recognize that and talk to yourself and calm your frustration, then there's going to be a much greater chance for you to be able to read the child and see what they need. And one of the things is if a child runs away from you, and that's also acting silly and very provocative, if a child runs away from you, what the tendency is to, maybe grab them or run after them, or show an angry face and get frustrated, maybe yell, things like that. And my suggestion is actually to turn around and walk in the other direction and see if the child will follow you. And just stay there for a little while and be away from the child to see. Usually the child, when you're playing cat and mouse with a child, they'll run away from you. And so the idea is for them to, when you move away from them, they might come and see where you're at. And as soon as they come to you, it's really important not to be confrontive, just to come along on their side and say, hey, there you are. I want to show you something in the other room. Let me, there's a book here that we can read together or something like that. So you want to kind of go with their flow and not surprise them or confront them when they come and look for you. So that's one example of being silly and chaotic. Another example is a child might be provocative, like poking, or let's say they're like throwing something, or they're doing somersaults on the couch, something physical that's provocative and silly. And a lot of times whoever they're doing it towards, the other person gets irritated. And then we have a situation where it's really an escalation. A lot of times it's like two siblings teasing each other, something like that. So one thing to do is to organize that behavior. So if the kid is throwing something, or let's say they're taking a toy and they're going like this, like a stuffed animal, and they're bopping it on their towards their sibling or towards you, is you don't want them to just whip it at you or throw it at you, but you can ask them if they can toss it to you and you'll catch it, and then see if you can do it like, let's organize and catch it and throw it 10 times, something that's like organized, rhythmic, a back and forth. Or a child may be making like silly sounds that are bothering the other people around them. Okay. And you tell them to stop and they won't stop. So it depends if they're making a sound that is like with their mouth, like saying la, 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 and driving everybody else crazy. You might need to go and help them, like do something with you, like go into the kitchen and make a salad, or help you to fold the laundry, whatever you're doing next to engage them. Or you might need to give them something that they can do with their mouth. Like you can have them, you could certainly give them something to suck and swallow, like water with a straw, and give them something to do like swallow, suck and swallow, which is a very soothing thing for all humans to do. Or if it's appropriate, you could give them gum or carrot sticks, something to chew on. But many times kids who are making the noises that are annoying, they have something in their body. So it's a sensory thing, and they need some sort of stimulation. And they're doing it in part because they're getting a reaction from, and trying, and at least getting some sort of feedback from their environment, like from their siblings, even if it's like negative attention, but in part probably because they have some sort of energy on the inside of their body, and they're trying to that's uncomfortable, and they're trying to regulate it in some way by making a noise. And so to them, like just the rhythm of it, or the vibration in the mouth and in the ears, is a way of being able to deal with that discomfort in their body. And so I certainly made some suggestions there of like giving them something to do with their hands, or giving them something to chew on, or something to suck and swallow. But also it could be that they actually have something that's uncomfortable for them in their body. And so one thing that you would want to do is something physical. But something physical that gives, a lot of times what we think of that helps to calm the body is what's called an occupational therapy proprioceptive input. which means you're giving squeezes or compressions of the joints that are between between your bones, and just squeezing the body in different ways. And one thing you could do is like you could give a massage on the back, or you could give bear hugs, or you could make them into what we call like a pillow sandwich, and make them into stack pillows on them and press so they're lying on the ground, and you press the pillows on them and press them down on the ground, and they get that squeezing. And there's lots of other, types of touch that can be soothing. And so that may be something that will help the child to stop making, those annoying sounds, or if they're picking at their sibling or something like that. It could literally be they're seeking stimulation in their body, and you need to come and provide it or organize it. So that is something that very, very frequently, if you don't manage that, if you don't address it from the point of view of of the sensory experience that the body needs, then they'll get it in negative ways, like they'll provoke their sibling or they'll provoke you. And then that becomes a relational issue. Then that becomes an attachment issue when people are negative towards them, and then the child is sent away to their room, and then they feel that they're, being punished unfairly, and then they think I'm a bad kid. So I hope people can see that sometimes a physiologic issue becomes a relational issue, but it's better to look at it from the lower point of view, the more primary, or the more the first original point of view, which is like the physiologic or the sensory. Now, another reason why a child might be acting silly, well, they might be a clown because underneath they're feeling sad. A lot of us do this. So we overstimulate, we seek attention, we're provocative. If we have the skill of being funny, like we are naturally funny, a comedian. We're good at mimicking and imitation and physical humor, or we're very clever. We use that from a very early age in order to stimulate ourselves and generate that kind of energy, because right underneath we feel a lack of energy, a hopelessness, a sadness. And a lot of times that comes out in children, that comes out a lot of, the sadness comes out as irritability. So they're either really, they're really silly and clowning around, but then when you tell them it's time to stop, they get really irritable and they call names, or they kick and they throw and they have a tantrum, and they're really negative. And so what I would suggest is consider the possibility that when you're trying to, it's all wonderful when it's fun and games and it's time to play, but when it's time to be serious and they don't want to calm down and focus on doing homework or go to sleep or something like that, if they start to be irritable, rather than, going towards like saying, hey, cut it out, or why are you so, grouchy or irritable or angry right now, I would go more towards reflecting the possibilities of them feeling like that there's something that's making them sad. Or if you could use other words other than sad. For example, you could say if there's something that's making you feel kind of yucky or kind of down, there's something that you're disappointed in, there's something you feel like lonely about. And that is going more, or like that sometimes the kids will call that feeling boring. And that boring feeling is actually a sense of like that emptiness or feeling sad, and they have lots to feel sad about. A lot of kids have a lot of things to feel sad about. Whether it's a loss that they experience, some of the losses that they experience, we know, some we don't. They may have been rejected at school. They may be missing a teacher who left, and they may be remembering, the loss of somebody that we don't think of as something that happened in the recent past, like a grandparent or a pet or something like that, and there's lots of things that they might have seen on TikTok, on the news, in their own community. And so if a child, if you say, hey, you know what, and you might be feeling, you were being silly and now you're being grouchy. And I wonder if you might also be feeling like somewhat like something that might feel sad or disappointed about. And if so, that makes sense. So they might be like, what are you talking about? Or no, not at all. But it's not a bad idea to throw that out there and into the mix, and keep in mind that could be a reason why a child goes from being really silly and really clowny to being really irritable, is they might have some sort of sadness underneath that's worth investigating. So I hope that those have given you some ideas about possible reasons that aren't just that the child is trying to get attention or trying to get out of doing something, or they're doing it because they haven't been well educated or well mannered. And I invite you now to be part of this workshop in a more interactive way, because there's nothing like true life examples for us to be able to think about various scenarios. Because silly and chaotic, wow, does that come in a lot of different presentations, right? So I'm happy to take any questions. And if you want to take a moment to raise your hand, there's a raise hand icon on the bottom right, you will be promoted by my colleagues as a presenter, and then you'll be allowed to turn your camera on and ask your question. I'm happy to take a question that's written in the chat until we have people who are ready to ask their question. And Ellen, you're asking a question. What about when they just aren't in a place to listen? Like they've escalated to a level of silly and chaotic that they can't really hear and listen to guide next steps. Yeah. So Ellen, thanks for that. If they can't hear, the next step, that means you have to go over to them and try to do something that's more like physical. And by that, I simply mean coming over and helping them by putting your hand on their back or linking arms or something like that, stroking their hair, bringing them something to drink, bringing them something that they should hold on to and walk with you. If they can't do any of those things, then part of what you might have to do is remove the stimulation in the room that they're in, like ask the other people to leave the room, get really quiet so they like to reduce the stimulation. But what we would want to avoid is like telling them over and over again, especially from across the room, hey, stop it, calm down, because the words often make it worse. And so we can't keep giving the instruction over and over again. Okay. Hi, Deb.
Hi, thank you. I have a 10-year-old boy that's in my life. He's a step grandson, and he needs to be the center of attention all the time when the kids are around. It's not so much with adults, but if I try to give attention to his younger sibling, then he needs to jump in and interrupt our play. He cannot allow anyone else to have one-on-one time.
Okay. I see. Okay. So what might he come and do if you and your other grandchild or child are playing?
If I try to push the little one, he's only 3. If I try to push him on the swing, he'll like run between us or tag the little one on the back or just disrupt our play in some way.
Wow. Okay.
The little one is no longer the focus. He is.
Okay. And what would happen if you had him help you push the little one on the swing?
I haven't tried that.
Okay. I don't know why your 10-year-old, because 10 is pretty old, right? You would expect more independence from him at this age, you would hope. But it may be that he needs just as much attention and structure and regulation as the three-year-old does, and that you need to see him as somebody who's like always needing an assignment or always needing to be your helper, or needing to be included in some way. Like, you could have him see, count how many swings until your 3-year-old gets off. Like, how many swings can we push him? Let's see if we make it to 100, or sing a song with him or something like that. But I think anything you can do to avoid the situation where you're saying, hey, stop it, cut it out, it's his turn. The negative is to just try to avoid that and try to include him in some way.
So that leads to the little one never having individual time.
Well, I see what you mean. My guess is that something, I don't know, since I don't know the 10-year-old, but see if him feeling more included in part of things might lead to him feeling like more independent and more settled. That's my hope. Otherwise, you might have to organize something for the 10-year-old to do. That's really engaging, like have him play with somebody else or have him have special time, like on the iPad or something like that. But I kind of, to some degree, you have to accept that your 10-year-old needs that like in being included and being like, be my helper, being told what, how you can be included, so that he doesn't like harass you and tease the 3-year-old and make you feel so irritated that then like it manifests into him feeling bad about himself, because that makes it like worse, right?
And that's what happens a lot of times, is he'll end up fighting with the little one just to have that attention.
Yeah. He sounds like somebody who always needs a job and have him always have like a role. So
he's going through a lot of changes in his family life. So yeah, I think
sure he has his reasons. Yeah.
Here there that he'll get overlooked.
Aw. Okay, well, that'd be awesome if you could spend special time with him too, and tell him how special, how like unique and special and precious he is too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Hello, Miss T.
Hi, Daphna. Thanks for presenting this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the mom of 2 adopted boys from Bulgaria, and the younger one we just recently adopted about 1.5 years ago. And he's come with some, he's presented with some challenging behaviors both at home and at school. And setting diagnoses aside, something that has come up at school is they did a a functional behavior assessment, and out of that came a behavior support plan. But what I've noticed is that very much focuses on the behaviors coming from a need for attention, a wanting to avoid something, or a tangible need. But what I've noticed is that it's not really coming from a trauma-informed perspective of like that behavior is trying to communicate something, and what is that something. So I'm wondering how would you suggest advocating for a better behavior support plan? And we're in the process of finding a different placement for him. And there's a part of me that wants to just remove my consent from the behavior support plan and say, you don't get to do a behavior support plan until you take a more trauma-informed approach. And so I'm wondering, based on what you said about these behaviors aren't always coming from a place of wanting attention, or that you don't use that framework. You try to avoid that. So I'm wondering how could I best advocate for that, and how the school is handling my child's challenging behaviors.
Yeah. Gosh, a lot of times schools do look at things from like a super behavioral approach, and like reduce it, to just, like a behavior and consequence and antecedent, whatever that approach. Okay. So one thing is, and I don't know how you feel about this, but is to have a meeting with the teacher, the teacher, who all of his teachers or whoever is with him, and tell them what happened to him and tell them his story. Because a lot of times people don't want to tell the story because it's private. And also they don't want the child to be labeled. But I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming if he had to be adopted, that he has suffered a lot. Okay. And he also had a tremendous amount of loss because he has been taken away from his family and his country. And as soon as people, like teachers, know the child's story, and you tell them, I don't know if this is true, but would he qualify for having what Bessel van der Kolk calls developmental trauma disorder? I don't know.
I would think, yeah.
Look it up.
Think so. Yeah, I've read his book, and this is what kind of led me to this moment in time. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so you read his book, and the developmental trauma disorder. You can see the criteria, and you can begin to advocate for your child by continuing to use that conceptual diagnosis over and over again with the teachers, and tell them that, I'm not sure. Yeah, because you said diagnoses aside, right? So you get to decide what diagnoses you present to the school. And I think that it's really important that he be presented as having developmental trauma disorder, so that the approach is, you look at it from the physiologic point of view. Is he overstimulated? Does he need a break? Does he need some sensory input? Does he need to go take a walk? Does he need he definitely doesn't need the behavior and reward system, unless that works for him. If it does, okay.
It doesn't. Nope.
I didn't think so. He would be exceptional.
He also doesn't need the I'm going to remove my relationship from you as a way of showing you you're not going to get what you want.
Right.
He, like you said, he's had a lot of loss, and so removing yourself from him. He sees a bajillion teachers because he has PT and speech and OT and all the things. And so it's does he have even that one person who he can connect to in the classroom, in his team, his IEP team? So,
the people, not it's all about, and with a child like this, it's all about safety and regulation. So whatever they can do to make him feel comfortable, he doesn't have to, like, he shouldn't, have to complete all 8, whatever, answers, questions on a test, or if he gets upset or dysregulated, that he gets to move away from that, from the scene of like the table and go to another room, just things that are, and somebody accompanies him and things like that. That is really important. And I do support you. And I don't know, you said take away the functional behavioral analysis thing, a plan until they're more equipped. And I would very much encourage you to try to bring them like material to read, tell them about what his history is. I find, and this is what I've consistently found, when you tell teachers the child's story and ask for their compassion about the child's and that he needs a different approach because he has developmental trauma disorder, most teachers, they went into the profession for a reason. They want to help kids, but if they don't know the story, they can't keep it in mind. And so I encourage you to share his story and share information. And I also say it because it will help other students too that they'll encounter in the future. So
thank you so much. That's really helpful.
Good. Thanks, Misty. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Daphna. Thank you for doing this. And aloha from Maui, Hawaii. I just had a question about, I work primarily with foster youth. I was a prior foster youth when I was growing up. And the one thing I seem to come across is the chaotic or silly behavior resulting in stonewalling. And so I'm trying to figure out the best way to connect. I don't take like a punitive approach or anything like that. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Okay, so thank you for that question. By stonewalling, you mean the adult is, the foster parent is stonewalling the child, like shutting them out?
Opposite. Child is stonewalling everyone that tries to care, like basically.
Oh, I see. Okay. And they're acting silly and chaotic?
So what will happen is they'll act like silly or chaotic. And then if you approach them to to redirect the behavior, they just like shut down and then don't respond at all, don't talk, don't move or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And I can see how it's a trauma, there's some trauma, there's a lot of trauma there. But it's with this one particular foster youth who is amazing. Okay. Yeah. And I just wanted your thoughts.
Okay. What is this one particular foster youth? Paint me a picture here. Put me in the scene. What is
so he's 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's 6 years old and sorry, my husband's leaving right now for work. He's 6 years old and I think this is his fifth home. He has some behavior challenges at school. He was recently in a little bullying tiff. He was defending someone. The teacher tried to talk to him about it. He didn't say anything, just sat there, didn't respond at all. And that's what we're noticing, even in therapy sessions, even with the caregiver. So it'll be like this more chaotic behavior that results in the completely shutting down the stonewall.
I see. Okay. Well, I think it would be useful to change the descriptor to more dissociation. Would that be okay? The withdrawal? Yeah. I'm not sure if it's stonewalling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dissociating would be more right. Yeah.
Okay, I think that'll be helpful because that is what happens. They go super high, into sympathetic activation, and then they go into dorsal. If we're talking in this, from the point of view of the polyvagal theory of the vagus nerve, So he's either in fight or flight, which chaos and is also part of fight or flight. Okay. And it's like part of that. And then he can't hear you afterwards. He can't hear you. He's just numb, or he might look like he's doing it on purpose, but he's not doing it on purpose.
Right.
And so a lot of first of all, we really, really have to look at the structure of like his program of his day that he has. He has like fewer choices, lower stimulation, that anytime you can use rhythm to like move him from place to place, like singing a song or stomping or marching, anytime you can like put him into sensory experiences like water, the bath, the swimming pool, he's functioning on a much, much lower level in terms of his like abilities. And so anytime people are talking to him at all and saying, hey, don't do that. You have, you this is like, you're making bad choices. Come over here. Do this next, like instructions. They don't work at all when a person is in sympathetic, and especially not in dorsal. So when he's tuned out after he gets in trouble or whatever, like what the teacher said was happening after the bullying incident, is you have to let him go into a quieter space, try to give him something to hold on to, like a teddy bear, something to drink, tell him, you can stay in here and you're not in trouble, and you're not a bad boy, and we'll get through this. Like you have to say things that are reassuring in a soothing tone in order to calm him down, because he's going to stay in that frozen state because he's like in a state of like terror. And so even if he has to have a consequence, I know if he was bullying somebody, then, he might be in trouble. But my point is that during that time, he's in like abject fear, but he just can't show it. So you have to say, I'm with you. We're going to get through this. I believe that you're a good boy. And like, just more so like the rhythm of it, the reassuring tone of it is really, really important, rather than being like, hey, answer me, and like looking at him straight in the eye and trying to be like, hey, answer me. Why did you do that? This isn't okay. Like that kind of lecturing and confronting the child. So.
Right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I see him today, so this is perfect timing. Thank you so much, Daphna.
Awesome. You're welcome, Christina. Thanks for the work you do. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to see you.
You too. So I have a son who just turned 3. I am a therapist, but I only see adults in my practice. And it's been very interesting parenting a toddler and trying to do it from a trauma-informed perspective. So showing up to this space today more just in my role as a parent. Okay. And I guess context is that the parenting that I received was very authoritarian, very like behavior consequence sort of sequence. And I've noticed that is pretty difficult to like retrain in my own brain as I'm parenting my son.
Fair enough.
So I'm really interested, as you say, like, even as you said to Misty, like schools can be very kind of behavior consequence focused. I'm interested in that because one thing that's happening, and we try to use a lot of emotion focused language at home. And one of the words that he has like really latched onto recently is grumpy. And so, but it's been kind of, I find it comical, but I'm noticing that when we're trying to set limits with him, or when it's time to like, go somewhere, or time to do the next thing that he doesn't want to do, he just immediately will say, he'll kind of like do this and go, I'm starting to feel a little grumpy. And the temptation in me is to be like, oh my gosh, like these tools that I'm trying to give you to communicate with me, like you're using them against me, right? By saying, and so I just thought that was so interesting, like the way that I can interpret that. So on one level, I'm like, it's great. I love that you can tell me how you feel. But also, are you just saying that because you don't want to do whatever thing we need to do? So I'm just really curious. Yeah, Leslie, I see your comment of like parenting as therapists. It's really interesting. Yeah, just curious what thoughts you have or ways to approach him when he says things like that.
Well, your son is really smart, and that you are teaching him, and he's not using it against you, but he's flowing with what you're teaching him, and he's trying it out. And if it feels like he's trying to like get out of, if let's say you're like, okay, well, it's time to get off the playground, like we're going home now, and you're like. And he's like, I'm starting to feel a little grumpy. Okay, I got it. You. What you would do is say something like, because in this case, you're not gonna be like, oh my God, I applaud you. You said your feelings. Now you get to stay on the playground for 10 more minutes.
Right.
No. You say, oh wow. Thank you so much for telling me you're feeling grumpy. I can see that. I really believe you. It's time for us to go now. So that's what we're doing now. Do you want to take my hand, or would you like me to give you a piggyback ride to the end of that fence? That's how we're doing. That's how we're doing now. And then you just go along with your like program. I mean, I don't know what else you would do if he sits down on the ground and is like, no, I'm protesting. I mean, that's not, you didn't say that, but I mean, my point is that just because you give him empathy and descriptive language and show him that like, it's hard, it's hard when we're feeling, grumpy or irritable or tired or lonely or clinging, like, that's really wonderful for you to share those feelings with him, but it doesn't mean that we're not leaving now. Yeah, but I think that probably the important thing is that he's not using it against you. He's just navigating relationship as he's developing. So.
Yeah, and I think that so I'm reminded of because throughout the day today, you're emphasizing the physical connection. And then the giving him the choice. Do you want to hold my hand or do you want a piggyback ride, right? Like he does well with choices usually. Sometimes the holding of the boundary is when I'll get the chaotic behavior, right? The like, okay, but we're still leaving. Then we down. So.
But if you can do it if you can do it like in a fun way, I support you. And if your back can handle it, you should give him a piggyback ride to the end of like the fence, or not all the way home, but.
Totally. Thank you so much, Daphne. Appreciate your.
Okay. Awesome, Michelle. Hi, Lisa. Oh, you're on mute still.
All right. How about that? I have a wonderful little 8-year-old adoptive son. I adopted him in September. He's been with me for 5 years. He's a very focused little boy at school, very, very compliant, a big pleaser. He has his difficulties at home and feels more free to act out at home. If he gets upset very quickly and will say, no, don't touch me. And he needs to calm down, and I just stay near him when he's like that. And he also we seem to be managing the acting out at home fine. At school, my real question is, at school, he's bringing up traumatic memories to his teachers, and they're very caringly and politely saying, oh, that's hard, honey. And then they move right on with whatever they're doing. Of course, they're not expecting this comment. And the school's refusing an occupational therapy evaluation. He has an IEP for learning. But I think he needs some sensory assistance at school to help him to cope with these huge feelings that are coming up in a space that he now, I think, feels safe in enough to share. So I have my own ideas about what might help him, but I haven't tried any of them, like something weighted he could put on. I don't know. We're just broaching this now, and I wonder what you might think.
Oh, okay. Well, can you get him an OT evaluation and get him OT privately?
And they are doing a sensory evaluation. They're kind of dancing all around it. They don't want to say they're doing an occupational therapy evaluation, but they're willing to do some emotional evaluation through the psychologist, and they're willing to do some sensory evaluation through the occupational therapist, but it's not exactly OT eval. I don't know. But yes, I can do that. So he's getting a lot of support at school, but I can have a professional outside do it.
I mean, what I'm separate from that, which I encourage, I mean, it's a matter of resources, because if you have the resources, the OT evaluation, and therapy would be fantastic for them to then recommend something for this that you can apply at school, which hopefully they have to accommodate, like if he needs something,
I think he does. I think he does need something, but he's not disruptive, so they don't want to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the minimum I'm saying is that if an OT recommends that he have some sort of resource, and you provide it for them, whatever it is. Whether it's a sensory toy, or whether it's like a transitional object, or someplace that he can write down his thoughts and feelings or something like that, then I'm saying they should honor that.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about the fact that he says things that are, like remembering traumatic memories. If the teacher is telling you that, or your son is telling you that, that's something that should be brought into like his psychotherapy, so that's grist for the mill for therapy.
We do have a therapist, and he has had for quite some time now, and that therapist is aware of it. Yes,
aware of it, but she should. I think if a child says something in school, the therapist can bring it up in therapy.
Well, we have a therapist who engages in play therapy, but he doesn't really talk through issues.
I see.
And I don't know, he's 9 years old already. He's got a lot of wonderful comprehension. He understands things, too adult for his own age. He's like a little adult, I feel. But yeah, play therapy is the way they do it. And
okay, well, you might ask your therapist to incorporate another, like a more integrate some more like actual themes that he brought from school. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Or have additional therapist. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome. Okay, I think after this, Andrea, I think you'll be our final question. If that's okay. You're on mute though still.
Okay, is that better? Can you hear me now? Right.
Yeah.
I've just got a few questions, 2 questions literally. I'll try and make it quick because I'm aware we are nearly out of time. What I'm just wondering about what if the chaotic thing children would do if that's something unsafe where I really have to prevent the behavior. What's the best way forward for that?
Yeah, I mean, if it's unsafe, you need to, it really matters how you approach the child, but you have to go over to them in a fluid way with your arms out and take him off the couch, or direct him away from his siblings that he's hurting, or you do have to put your hands over
run
his
off
hand.
in public or something. If they run off or something dangerous, if they run off when they're out and about. I obviously, and I normally would have run after them and grabbed them, but if is there any other way of?
Well, I mean, the best thing is prevention. So you really have to, either put your arm around them or hold their hand or have them, give them a really specific like assignment or task when they're walking with you. Oh, can you please hold on to this shopping cart and push it all the way there? Or can you please hold your brother's hand? Or, hey, can you please, hold my bag for me because I'm really because you're really strong, or anything that connects you to them and gives them a sense of purpose would be better than, you do have to run after them and grab them.
Yeah, of course.
If you can't prevent it, if you can't prevent it, it's really important for you to be able to say, tell them where you're going, tell them what you're going to do, what you like, literally be like, okay, when we get into the car and, I'm going to lock, we're going to lock the door is going to lock and you're going to put on your seatbelt and then you're going to sit in your car seat until we get to the grocery store, parking lot. And then I'm going to get out and open the car door for you. I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to see how many big steps it takes to get into the shop.
Yeah, so prepare them for what's happening so they're not going to be thrown out, thrown into the deep end. That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. I think that we've run out of time for the second question, Andrea.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Thank you so much for
thank you so much. I'm really glad I could take part in this call. I'm very glad. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Andrea. We had a lot of questions, a lot of hands raised that we didn't get to. Unfortunately, we're sorry about that. But thanks, everyone. Thanks to our viewers. TRF offers free community programs like this for all of you. And thanks to all of our volunteers. Your questions and your vulnerability really enrich the program. Big thank you to Daphna. Thanks for sharing your important and valuable work. We're so grateful. Join us next time, everyone, for session 3, which is a very special 2-hour session on bullying. We're going to learn how to empower the victim and how to heal the bully. Details and previous sessions can all be found on the TRF website. Log into your account and go to My Purchase Content. Working diligently behind the scenes, thank you to Abby Bueno, the TRF Customer Service Specialist, and Connor McCann, our Media Specialist. We look forward to seeing everyone next time. And come with your questions. Come ready. Thanks, everybody. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.